Hello, my friends. Welcome back to Growing Up with Godzilla. My name is Donny Winter, and this is my show where I have conversations with Godzilla fans about how they've grown with the character and franchise over time. And voila, the third season of the show has officially wrapped. And now we are on to the post-season pre-edited episodes. And for this particular episode, I wanted to just look back and celebrate the phenomenal human beings that I've had on the show, reflecting on how they've grown with Godzilla over the years. I just really quickly want to thank everyone for the amazing support that they have given me and this show over the past 3 years. I'm really excited for you all to see what's on the horizon. And what I thought was going to be just like a small temporary thing has turned into a pretty significant creative outlet in my life. So thank you so much for showing me that support for Growing Up with Godzilla. And I will now give the floor over to the wonderful guests that I had gracing this stage this past year.
When I was a kid, I loved Godzilla. All my poster board projects at school were Godzilla related. I was that kid. And I got a lot of flack for it, as many of us did. But now I'm doing the website. I'm going to Chief Fast. I have found people like me that love this stuff wholeheartedly. So it gets better because you're going to find people that are like you. You're going to find people that embrace you, and you're going to find your community.
Yeah.
And also, people that gave me flack for Godzilla back in the day went and saw King of the Monsters, went and saw -1, and they raved about how great it was. So I could, instead of going back and going, oh, I told you, I went, I'm really glad you see what I see now.
Godzilla is one of those things that has been missing from my life. As silly as that might sound from...
not at all.
I mean, maybe to someone outside of our fan base who say like, Godzilla just fulfills me so much in life. And they're like, what the heck? What do you... But it's true. It's true. Especially as I've gotten older, I kind of like have a hard time getting invested into fandom the same way I used to when I was like a teenager or something like that. But somehow Godzilla, it sparked like a crazy creative drive in me, and it's all just been a really fulfilling experience. Even getting me out of my shell on like a social aspect, like making new friends and acquaintances, like going out to G-Fest last summer and everything like that it's all really gotten me out of my shell, and just the franchise as a whole just pushes me to keep improving my art and my animation and inspire me.
But it shaped me as I wouldn't say be a better person, but it taught me to never let people tell you not to love something. It's like my parents always said, hey, you're going to outgrow it. You're going to outgrow it. This is just a phase. I'm like, 4-year-old me is going, ha, ha, ha. Joke's on you.
Right. I've had many Godzilla fans share that. And the premise, honestly, the premise of this show is to reiterate the fact that we're always growing up with Godzilla because we're still growing as people, right? So we won't, that's not a fad we're going to grow out of.
It's also taught me how to learn, how to love the visual effects aspect of it. That's why also, instead of editing, also, it's like if I had the money, I would recreate these things because as watching it, I learned through visual. So as I watch these films, I start learning how they do it.
I don't think I would have ever gotten into writing or amateur filmmaking had I not watched those movies. So definitely it spurred my creativity, because what's more creative than the Godzilla franchise? You could go on for hours about that. Several ways. My love of foreign films in general. I think the way you look at world events, the Godzilla series did a lot for that, because I don't know what my opinion of dropping the bombs on Japan in World War II would be had I not gotten into the series and likewise into the history of Japan and what they went through.
In the 2010, 2018, I got to be friends with Akira Takarada. And I'll tell you,
power.
there's a guy who here I am. This is the other thing. We're friends and we're having dinner together at one point, and it was a G Fest, and we're just eating and we're having so much fun just talking. And he's saying, "You're part of my family. You're, my other son." I was like that. Thinking, it's just hitting me. I'm going, this is a guy that I saw on TV in Monster Zero and in Godzilla King of the Monsters, the original. And I wondered about him. I wondered about who he was. And when I was taking myself back, and here I am now, and I'm friends with him. And that just blew me away. And to this day, I'm friends with his son Tetsuya and his wife Maki, and they're just the nicest people. They're just so nice. You know what I mean? It just is like Godzilla brought me here. Star Trek brought me here. You know what I mean? It's like these are things that are, and this all started when I was a kid. You know what I mean? And now I'm here doing that.
One word I can think of is resilience. Being resilient. As a human and as an artist, especially as an artist.
He kind of taught you that resilience then.
Godzilla taught me resilience. Be strong regardless of the obstacles that come your way. Keep fighting.
Who would I be today if I didn't have this? Because my life would be totally different. I wouldn't have the friends the friendships and like the family that we've become. I think it's made me more outgoing. It's made me more passionate about things that I'm really into. There's so many lessons that you learn through the Godzilla movies. Maybe when you're little, you don't really see it that much. But then as you start growing older and you're watching these, you're like, wow, there's literally a story.
Yeah.
Like an important underlying story in all of these films, even like the crazy show ones, pollution and bullying and nuclear hazards and all that kind of stuff. Like they're not just kids movies. They're not like just these silly dinosaur movies. They actually have meaningful, and they try to impact you to think about the things that's going on in the world.
It doesn't matter what country you're from, what culture you're raised in, what color your skin is. All these base desires were pulled out and modeled together in this one individual to show how we fucked up. We played with physics in the wrong way and we done fucked up. And this is all of your angst and hatred and destruction all put together in this ball that came to life that we call Godzilla. And now not only have to deal with the consequences of the own shit that happened to your country, but these are the literal footsteps of all of your past decisions coming to stomp your town down because you were a fucking idiot. And instead of sitting down and talking shit through like goddamn adults, you had to pull out missiles and bombs and planes and, man, grow the fuck up, guys. Come on. We did not have to fight a war.
I'm surrounded by this merch, so clearly it has changed my life in some way, but like how is the question, right?
Right.
So Godzilla set me on, I think, the path that I'm in, because at first when I was a scientist, Godzilla is first and foremost a science fiction franchise that heavily focuses on science. A lot of the times there are, especially in the later Heisei Millennium films, there's so much focus on science and trying to make it, like, it's still implausible, obviously, but they're trying to make it as plausible as it could possibly be. And I remember watching, like, the Heisei Mechagodzilla movie as a kid. I was blown away, and I thought it was, like, so plausible that, like, they had all the schematics for the Heisei Mechagodzilla just, like, ready to go, and they had all the command centers and stuff. Like, it was real. It felt real to me as a kid, so I think that captured my imagination in terms of the science and technology aspect of my career path at that time. And then when I transitioned into filmmaking, again, like, these are films, so it gave me a greater appreciation for filmmaking and films in general. So it did shape me into the person I am today in, like, small ways, but I think I can confidently say without Godzilla, I would not be where I am today. Doing film or having a passion for science. I don't think the flames would have been, like, fanned without this guy here.
And there's Godzilla's Revenge, and it's like,
yeah,
there is something really compelling about it because you're so egregious with the stock footage, as really feels like they're just kind of killing time. They're just trying to pad the film.
Right.
Whereas with Godzilla's Revenge, I feel like it's used a little more. It's just used creatively. Like it's used like of course this kid is a Godzilla fan. He's probably has the scenes all memorized and he's gonna mash them together. Because I did the same thing with fan fiction and stuff when I was younger. I was like, well, I want to recreate this scene. I don't want to like. You're a kid. You don't really have the capacity yet to really get creative and really start making your own super elaborate Godzilla sequences. So something about it feels like you're watching a highlight reel.
Yeah.
And in the context of the film, it makes sense. So, but yeah.
So if you go into watching Godzilla's Revenge from the perspective of knowing that it's Ichiro's fan fiction, then it changes the perspective. I actually watched it back in March for the first time in like 8 years. It had been a long time since I watched Godzilla's Revenge, and I remember watching it. And I'm like, I've watched this film 3,000 times, and there are things that I'm noticing now as a, for the most part, mentally developed creature. And I'm like kind of wowed by it. I'm like, wow, I didn't see this before. I didn't piece these things together before.
There was just a line in that brought me to tears every time I saw it, because I was dealing with terrible tendonitis in my knees, basically from overuse. I was going to the gym every day. Like I said, we were on strike. I was going to the gym every day, and I just worked my legs out a little too much. And I had like crippling tendonitis where I couldn't even sit down. Like I couldn't do this. I couldn't draw. I couldn't do anything. It was just affecting my life. I felt really depressed. I couldn't walk. I couldn't stand. I had to keep sitting down. So when -1 came out, I was just down in the dumps. And I saw the movie 4 times. I was out of work for 9 months. Just all these things. And when Tachibana comes at the end, he sort of like has like a character turn, right, in that movie, where he hates oh my god, what's the lead character's name?
Shikijima. He lets that hate go. Exactly.
And I think his character, I had that hate and that anger. Like I couldn't every day, like the depression and the anger and all this stuff. And when he tells him to live, oh my god, every time I watch that scene, I personalize it so hard. And I was just like, I need to live. I can't live in this depression of that I can't walk.
Brian and I quite literally would not be friends if not for Godzilla.
It's true.
Like 100% we probably wouldn't be.
First time we ever interacted was Dave getting mad at me because I got too close to his bionicles.
This is true.
Yeah.
But
and Godzilla was the thing that was like, all right, he's cool. I was much more introverted growing up, and so like Dave was like the only person I was like really like best friends with, like talking to, like all this stuff with. And it was like maybe it was a few years ago, like I really started to become more extroverted, and one of the big parts of that was going to the G-Fest for the first time. I mean, first and only time as of right now, but like that kind of like shifted something in my brain. Like after that, like I just wanted to go out more. I don't know what it was. It's just very strange. Like there's never really been a time in my life where I was just like a switch flipped in my head, and like it was a noticeable difference. But after that, I was definitely more like open and extroverted. But just going to Chicago and like going to that convention with like people that liked all the same crazy nerdy shit that I did, like it was like an awakening for me. It's like, oh, you don't have to hide all the time.
I wouldn't have gone to film school initially if not for Godzilla. So it is very, very literally altered the entire course of my life. The reason for that being is because as a kid, you want to be Godzilla, and I knew that like, oh, to be Godzilla, you got to get in a big suit and stomp around and fight other big guys in suits. So that's what I wanted to do as a kid. I would say I want to be a suit actor. I kind of realized very early on that like in the American film industry, not many people really do the whole suitmation thing unless you're Guillermo del Toro. So I kind of shifted my focus away from that. But all that film stuff is all stemmed from my love for Godzilla.
The big thing that for me with Godzilla is he comes up a lot in my therapy sessions with Laura.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you know, she's had a couple things to say. You know, I told her -1 is on Netflix, so I hope she goes and watches it, because like I told her, if you want to understand me, you go see that movie, because you'll understand all the stuff I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Because like she likes to use like visualization and stuff. She loves that I do that. But there was a time where I was telling her, you know, when I try to talk nice to myself, I feel really weird doing it. And she's like, well, you know, why don't you imagine Godzilla says those nice things to you? So it's like, okay, I do. It's like, okay, he's roaring something at me, and now I don't feel so weird for thinking I actually did a good job, because it's like he's telling me I did a good job. So like that morning with the scrambled eggs, where I made scrambled eggs after having a nightmare, you know, and you know, instead of curling up and sitting there and seething in the trauma, I went and made scrambled eggs just to get a sensory experience. And I just imagine he was saying that was good. So
it's definitely given me a hobby. It's given me something to be a fan of, for sure. I think it really I don't know, sort of made me, I guess, resilient to criticism of being a nerd, because you know, I went to high school in the early 2010s, and that was sort of like right on the cusp of when like being a nerd was sort of like cool and socially acceptable. Like everybody played video games, like even like the kids who played sports and the quote unquote cool kids, even though there really wasn't like a popular group at my high school, but everyone who was like who you would consider the popular kids, they play video games too. But it was like, even like everybody knew, but you had to keep that hidden, you know.
Yeah.
It was like, you know, if I like came to school wearing like a Godzilla shirt, people would be like, oh, okay. I mean, I did anyway. So yeah, I really didn't care if people thought like, yeah, I watch Godzilla movies, yeah, I play video games, yeah, I like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So what?
For me, on a practical sense, it's really shaped my journey as a filmmaker, as a storyteller. Like, I have an entire channel now dedicated to just making stop motion animations with, you know, storylines vary from being, you know, just rock'em sock'em monster fights to just hopefully adding some depth. And I hope there's something that the viewer can really come to appreciate and enjoy. To, you know, toy photography. Like, I realized, holy moly, I can always just take any shot from my movies and just turn that into a picture. And it's really nice. I love that you were talking about how fan art, fanfic, it's a great way for fans, I think, to not only explore just what they really enjoy and the kind of stories that they would really like to see, but it kind of proves that, man, these stories, these monsters, these characters can go on forever, because there's so many different ways that they could be depicted.
Do you feel like Godzilla has shaped you as a father as well, like in some fashion?
Absolutely. I mean, I think Son of Godzilla, where like it's distinct in my mind because of the fact that it humanized Godzilla for the first time, and for the better. I don't think every Godzilla story should have him be humanized. I don't think every Godzilla movie should have Godzilla be a dad. But I think it's special. It's so unique and vital to understanding the character more. Because, like, as a dad, I'm watching my son, you know, I watched him take his first steps. I watched him say his first word or phrase, which, you know, was cat. I watched him, you know, I have like the best job in the world. And that's just watching this little person not only grow, but discover who they are. And I think, like, the fact that I'm watching, you know, my boy not only watched some of the first Godzilla movies I ever saw, but he's now growing up in a time when it's actually really cool to, you know, like Godzilla. Like that's, I feel like, yep, did it. Totally, in some way, shape, or form. I think we, you know, we did our part. We helped make Godzilla more inviting to, you know, people who maybe otherwise wouldn't have been interested.
It made me appreciate, you know, I guess, living here a lot more because, you know, I have that connection. So I felt basically a deeper connection with Godzilla. And to me, you know, putting on a Godzilla film just to relax is one of my fun things to do. It really, really made me, you know, think about the necessary evil that my grandparents, you know, did. They didn't know what they were building at the time when they were building it. And in fact, my grandmother, you know, she only got the word atom from a dictionary that her supervisor was showing her. It's like, yeah, there's something to do with atom, and that's what you're doing. So they didn't know until the bomb was dropped. It puts in perspective for me. It's like, well, this is how this country is dealing with something that my own family had a hand in. So it puts in perspective of that.
I think more than anything, being proactive in making people feel welcome. Because I had said earlier with the podcast and how I've started with Chris Eaton, I didn't really have a lot of people to talk to about it. I maybe only had one other friend in 6th grade. And at that time I printed out, you know, the days of AOL. And like
love
inking.
those days.
I printed out so many pictures of Godzilla and all the kaijus and like Rodan and Mothra. I put each one into a plastic sleeve, into a binder, brought it to school, and then during recess was like, hey, I won't say his name. He knows exactly who he is. And I would flip through and talk about it, but then I quickly realized even I've exhausted him. And after a couple times in recess, he started like being like, oh, I want to talk about like other stuff, because I only had one friend. So I had to unload on that one person. The only other person I can talk to about is my mom. But at that time you felt very alone and you felt very by yourself. And I find that I wanted to create an atmosphere where not only is, you know, children and adults welcome, but also women and those who identify as, you know, women could come together and really love and talk about Godzilla and all the kaijus, Mothra, you know, King Caesar, Manda, everything, every character, without really any shame of saying this is a boys' club, when it's technically just large prehistoric creatures. If you want to simplify it, those have no gender specificity of like what you can like who can like them. And my mom was very big on like, who told you you can't like Batman because you're a girl? Like, you know, she's very much, she goes, you can like whatever you want. She's very big on, this is America. It's the American dream. You can be president and you can like Batman. You know, she was very big. And that kind of carries over into Godzilla and realizing I didn't have a lot of other people to talk to about it, like boys or girls. Like I didn't have anybody. And so I wanted to create an atmosphere that was, again, welcoming for everyone, but also to subdivide into that, into another little, you know, group, women and those who identify as women.
So some of the like themes, I guess, that like stuck with me for like from the movies, like their messaging, like most the ones I listed, like you said, have environmentalist message. Pulgasari, of course, has the anti-capitalist messaging it has. So just like those kind of themes, and like also the dark tones and stuff, like making me like explore goth imagery, I guess, and stuff.
Godzilla, I think, has informed a lot of what I look for in media. Like I was saying, like
Godzilla versus Biollante, all the things, the sci-fi world building kind of stuff, kind of set a standard for aesthetics of creatures and things, music, so much music.
Oh, me too.
Did you have the Monster Mania CD?
I sure did.
Yep.
I sure did.
Wore that thing out.
Me too.
So you had like those kind of things, and then obviously like what I'm doing now with the kaiju cocktails and things. But I think a big thing is what I think connected me with Godzilla versus Biollante. There's the huge emotional element to it. Like familial loss and creatures getting hurt and stuff. And I watched a lot of monster movies as a kid, but it was always like, Crater Lake monster, like, oh, this creature appears and we have to kill it, and hey, we killed it, we saved the day. But I always felt for the creatures. And you didn't see a lot of that except for like, King Kong. The whole city is celebrating. Then you have Carl and Anne over here like weeping for the beast. And that's what I wanted more of. So Godzilla kind of helped cultivate that, because they really showed care for the creatures. And like, Godzilla 85 is falling into the volcano and I'm just crying.
Oh God. Yep. Same.
And my wife has said before, she's like, I love that you cry. I'm like, is that a compliment? But like, yeah, I think it cultivated that kind of emotional, I don't know the word I'm looking for, but
emotional awareness.
Yeah.
With Godzilla, I also learned that, it's okay to be silly. I love this. My favorite Godzilla films are the more serious ending. As you go on, I also adore, one of my biggest turnarounds for the Godzilla series. I used to hate it growing up, hate it in my teen years. I just thought it was weird and nonsensical, but now I say it's one of my favorite avant-garde midnight movie cinemas. Hedorah is now one of my favorite Godzilla films because I adore how bizarre and it's one of those, it's like Houseu. It's like a John Waters film. They are bizarre, they are weird, but they are honest in their avant-garde.
So good.
I also learned that it's okay to be silly. It's also okay to be serious, and it's okay to be both at the same time, because that's just how life is. And I like when art reflects life, and life can be tragic, life can be hard, life can be anger inducing, but life can be silly. You can, have, funny jokes with your friends. You can see a funny meme on the internet. You can have, you and your family can have, weird recurring jokes or weird legends. It's one of those things where there is levity in life, and there is grandness in life, and there is darkness in life. And Godzilla, because there is dark movies, light movies, balanced movies, Godzilla has encompassed so many things that is what I value in creativity and the media I intake.
So like, admittedly, I was the type of kid who was like super knee deep in nerd culture all my life, because like the only people I really could talk to about like a whole bunch of nerdy interest in like my younger years was like my dad, since he raised me up with like a whole bunch of different films and shows and all that. But then like 4th grade rolled around, and one of my teachers and her son loved Godzilla, and that just kind of like shook me for a bit. It's like, oh my god, there's more people out there that love this goofy little wizard. And like the best thing is, like every weekend when I'm like in her class, she gave me this classic media box set, like not the submarine looking one, but like the very rainbow foily one. And like I watch like all those films so much. And like over the years, I have like a couple other teachers and friends who were into Godzilla, like especially after 2014 came out, and I could just talk to them about them like all the time, essentially. Yeah, like this even like kind of went all the way up to like graduation in high school, because like my history teacher, like one day out of the blue, he just like had a bunch of X Plus Godzilla figures like on his desk. I'm just like, wait, what the fuck? I'm just like, you're like Anguirus and like the '84 Godzilla, and I'm like, why have I not known this? And like like a couple of days before I graduated, we were just hanging out and like chatting, and then he decided, we're gonna put on versus Guyan during like this class because why not? And then after that, we watched the original '86 Transformers movie, and I'm like, this is great.
There's lots to be had looking at the Godzilla films, and I've touched on it a little bit, like been able to go back and revisit how they pull on these threads and they tell these different stories. I think it's not a surprise to anybody who's watching this that knows me that I am pretty big in the collector space of Godzilla figures as well. So in addition to being able to look at the cinematic stories that are being told through the movies and the themes that you experience, I think that we're in a collector boom right now, and I feel as though I just have a lot of fun. Like, the Godzilla has very serious roots, very serious origins, and even now, like, movies being made that are very serious. But there's also a lot of fun to be had, whether it's the video games or the campiness of some of those Showa movies. I get a little bit of flack, people saying that I'm not hard enough on some of the companies making this stuff, but like, at the end of the day, they're giant monster toys. I think those are ridiculously fun. Like, I think that I have a lot of fun as somebody who's 30 years old, has a little baby at home. Like, I'm still able to enjoy this stuff, and I try not to take things too seriously.
I mean, -1 alone has just given Godzilla a level of legitimacy he's never had before, and I felt proud, obviously, super proud being part of that. Felt like I backed the right horse all these years. But something else you have to remember is I got into Godzilla as a kid in the 80s and then the 90s, and like the perception of Godzilla has been it's the silly camp, guys in suits wrestling around. It's like bad dubbing. A lot of like some Japanese light Japanese racism kind of laced in there about the culture and behavior. Not for me. Sorry if that came out like it was coming for me.
No, that made sense.
But like that was Godzilla at the time, and then '98 was coming out, and that was going to legitimize him in America as like a blockbuster, and then it just didn't. And so it took a long time for me and all of us to be able to say with pride, like, Godzilla is not just nonsense. If done well in good hands, it could be a wonderful period piece drama, like an outstanding drama. It could be beautiful poetry when it's given to Donny. It could be anything, and I'm very proud of that. Like, that now the world is seeing that, this is good storytelling possibilities all over.